Welcome to Defining Dad Bod, where my dad, Coach Alex Van Houten, plus his 14 years of experience to work for you. You should listen to him. Here's Pretty Beast Mode. Who knows who we could be if we could become 1% better every single day.
What's up, guys? This is Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. I hope you're doing super well. Thanks so much for listening in to the show where we're working hard to become 1% better every single day through exercise, nutrition, and lifestyle change. Here at Defining Dad Bod, we believe that we can make a difference in ourselves and therefore our families and our communities by controlling our controllables, walking the narrow way, and continually improving. Today you're listening to Season 3, Episode 2 of Defining Dad Bod, called Supplements Are Stupid. And if you made it this far, I can apologize for the clickbaity title. My hope today is that by listening to this episode, we'll have laid the groundwork for an amazing supplement series. And not only will you understand the reasons why to use supplements and why not to, but you can also get your head wrapped around some of the things you've probably never heard talked about before, like nutrients versus polyphenols, or the very real existence of the placebo effect. It's going to be an awesome show. I'm glad you're listening. 2 pieces of housekeeping before we get started. First, if you want to dive into this year's Mastermind at Defining Dad Bod, we'll be going through 6 weeks of True Fit, the practical application of long-term health and fitness goals, and that will be launching in August. We're currently amassing an information list if you want more information about how to register, and when registration opens, that you get first dibs on our 20 spots. You can join that list at definingdadbod.com/truefit, TRUFIT. It'll take you 30 seconds to fill out the form real quick and get on the list. In the next week or so, we'll be sending out an outline for the 6-week mastermind so you can understand class times as well as what we'll be covering during that time. It'll be intensive, very educational, and I promise it will impact your health and fitness journey. Go to definingdadbod.com/truefit, TRUFIT, to get on the information list and to be the first to register for our 20 spots. That's definingdadbod.com/truefit. The second piece of housekeeping is an announcement. Here in the month of July, we have $25 off our JUMPSTART program. Our JUMPSTART program is our most valuable offer at Defining Dad Bod. You get 1 week of our 5-star coaching service completely personalized to you, a 45-minute nutrition and exercise consultation to get your questions answered and to kick off the program, 1 week of personalized nutrition and exercise coaching to get your movements under wraps and to clean up your food journal. And then we end with a personalized macronutrient recommendation to help you continue seeing results, and a 20-minute way forward call, so that having undergone an intense week of exercise and nutrition coaching, you can ask questions about the future and get them answered live. This month's Jumpstarts also get the 12-week meal planning tool, complete with recipes, weekly meal plans, and grocery store lists, written by my registered dietitian on staff, who also happens to be my wife. It's an awesome deal with the links in the show notes below. We estimate that the whole package is $480 in value. It's normally on sale for $150, but you can get it this month for $125. Go to definingdadbod.com/shop and type in the promo code JULY2020 at checkout. Whether you're curious, looking for a kick in the pants, or maybe want to try our coaching services to see if long-term coaching with Defining Dad Bod would help you achieve better results for you, I'd love to be your guy. Go to definingdadbod.com/shop/jumpstart. Use promo code JULY2020. Don't worry, I won't be too mean. #train your life. Now with that housekeeping out of the way, let's dive into supplements are stupid and why we need to be intelligent about them. Let's kick off this series about supplements the right way, by starting with a discussion about why we use supplements and why we don't. And then after we've covered the mindset around supplement use, then we'll cover 6 things that pertain to supplement use at large. So that when we bring the discussion to something more specific, like whether or not you should use creatine monohydrate, or what supplements you might take to help you sleep better at night, then we'll all be on the same page about things like the placebo effect, or how to tell the difference between a quality supplement and a garbage supplement. So let's dive in. Why use supplements? Let's start with why we don't use supplements. We don't use supplements to cover up a bad diet. I'll repeat that. You can't out-supplement a bad diet. The root word of supplements is the same root word as support. Supplements are meant to bolster or to support what your nutritional efforts are currently doing for your body. Maybe that means delivering something to your body that's not normally in your diet. Or maybe that means giving you a little extra help in some of the areas that you're having a hard time shoring up with your diet. That is a very different mindset than taking a supplement as a magic pill. We'll talk more about that mindset difference in a moment when we talk about the placebo effect. But if you don't hear anything else from me right now, I want you to hear that we don't take supplements as a magic pill or magic bullet to instantly make us better or more healthy in place of making changes to our exercise, nutrition, and lifestyle. We take supplements to support us while we make changes to our nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle. Remember, supplement, S-U-P-P, comes from the same root word as support, S-U-P-P. The reasons that we take supplements can really be boiled down to two things. First, we use supplements to bolster nutrient intake during intense adaptations. An example of this might be when you first start an exercise program, especially if it's new, especially if you're deconditioned. Your body's going to go through some rapid transformations. It's going to be trying to pack on metabolic tissue. It's going to be trying to upregulate a lot of your metabolic activity as well in your hormonal glands. This effect requires a large amount of nutrients from the body, and our body only stores so many of those nutrients, and so, in the very beginning phases of a program, when I'm helping a client change their nutrition, I also generally recommend a multivitamin. It's not because a multivitamin is a magic pill that will instantly bolster fat loss, as well as muscle growth, but while the body's undergoing so many new adaptations, and we're asking it to progress almost every single session, the more nutrients that we can give the body to work with, the better. And this is especially true if there's a lot of things in our diet that we're not actually getting because we haven't made the changes yet. Additionally, it takes a lot less bandwidth to add a multivitamin to your day than it does to change your entire menu today to increase things like your vitamin B or your manganese content in your diet. Personally, my goal with my clients is to get the majority of the nutrients they need from the food in their day. And this is evidenced by the fact that I, your coach, tend to take a multivitamin very few weeks out of every year. Another example of bolstering nutrient intake during intense adaptation would be like recommending a vitamin D supplement during the winter. During the summer months, if you can get enough sun exposure, then your vitamin D content in your body is actually pretty high. Your body uses the ultraviolet light from the sun to synthesize vitamin D out of your cholesterol at the level of your skin. And since vitamin D is fat soluble, you can synthesize vitamin D and store it away in your fat cells. This is a great system. In fact, it works really, really well to support most people throughout the entire winter, if you're getting enough sun exposure during the summer. But most of us are spending a lot of time indoors, and some are very concerned about skin damage on their body, and so they don't get a lot of sun exposure anyway. Recommending a vitamin D supplement, especially during the winter months when we're not getting much sun exposure, will help to bolster that nutrient intake and give our body what it needs so that we don't end up deficient. And there are many other examples of bolstering nutrient intake during intense adaptation or deficiency, but this is the number one reason I recommend supplements. And the number two reason that I find myself recommending supplements to clients regularly is to solve acute issues with nutrients or herbal adaptogens. Let's say I'm training a client and I have them bend over to attempt to touch their toes, and they say something along the lines of, "Oh man, I can really feel this in my hamstrings, they're so tight." Great, I think. Let me mark that on my client file. Tight hamstrings. So then over the next couple weeks, we do some work on their glutes, we do some work on their lower back, we do some mobility work, but they don't seem to show any progress in their flexibility toward reaching their toes. Additionally, they're reporting some muscle tightness and cramping during their exercise program. Now, earlier on in my career, I would have thought, gee, maybe this person needs to do some more yoga, some more foam rolling, and some more stretching, because they're really having a hard time improving their flexibility. As I've matured in training and as I understand the body better, there's actually another solution, however, that's fundamentally a better one than stretching more often to improve your flexibility, and that is magnesium supplementation. According to the research, it turns out that almost 80% of the population is deficient in magnesium in their diet. Additionally, if you understand physiology, calcium is the ion that allows your muscles to contract, while magnesium is the ion that allows your muscles to relax. If you're deficient in magnesium, trying to stretch your muscle without enough of the magnesium ions in the muscle to tell it to relax is kind of like stretching an old rubber band. you're not making the muscle any more elastic, and so ultimately you're wasting your time. In that case, I would recommend for my client to take a magnesium supplement, and I should be able to test the effects of that supplement within 2 to 3 days of their initial supplementation. After all, magnesium is a water-soluble supplement and doesn't need to build up in your system in order to have a positive effect. And so we've solved an acute issue, that is, muscle tightness, with a nutrient, magnesium. And perhaps over time, as their muscle tissue improves, as their diet evolves, and as their digestive system gets better at pulling magnesium out of their food, this person might not need to take magnesium anymore in order to touch their toes. Then we've solved the problem, and we can move on with our lives. Similarly, I often recommend supplements to help people with sleep issues. Let's say that you're having difficulty falling asleep and staying asleep, in which case one of the things that I've recommended in the past and has been researched to help with sleep cycles is a supplement called Relora Plus, which is an adaptogen from the bark of Magnolia officinalis. And while we're still unsure of the mechanism, we believe it helps to dampen the cortisol response, and therefore do what should naturally be happening in your circadian rhythm anyway, which is lower stress hormone in your body at night. Additionally, I might recommend some time-release melatonin, which has also been researched to help with insomnia and to improve deep sleep quality. With the combination of the two, perhaps you start sleeping much better. And what's really nice about using plant adaptogens as a sleep aid is that you can actually train your circadian rhythm without developing a dependence to a drug, and therefore, in a few months, you might be able to discontinue these supplements completely, but continue to sleep as if you were taking them anyway. #health goals. Again, that's an example of solving an acute issue with nutrients or herbal adaptogens. So before we get to 5 very important notes about supplement use, I'd like to recap our why. We can't out-supplement a bad diet. Supplements are not magic pills to bring about magical transformations in our body while we continue not exercising like we're supposed to, not eating like is best for us, and not altering our lifestyle in the ways that we're able to bring about our best. As a coach in the last 14 years of working with clients, I still recommend supplements, and the top 2 reasons that I recommend those are: 1, to bolster nutrient intake during intense adaptations or deficiencies, and 2, to solve acute issues with nutrients or herbal adaptogens. The word supplement comes from the same root as the word support. By adhering to intelligent and scientifically backed supplement recommendations, we'll support our body through its adaptations and deficiencies, and help ourselves with some acute issues. Now, if you're tracking with me, I have 5 notes about supplements that I really want to share with you that'll help you get the most out of this series that we're jumping into. The first of 5 notes is about the placebo effect. Have you ever heard about the placebo effect? The placebo effect is a measurable physiological change that can only be explained by your belief in the effectiveness of what you're taking, not what you're actually taking. Someday I might do an entire show on the psychology of the placebo effect and the actual physiological effects that we've measured on people that can only be scientifically attributed to their belief in change rather than the actual effects of what it is that they're using to change themselves. But the effects are mind-boggling. Things as extreme, but not limited to, sugar pills curing cancer, or false genetic testing making you run faster and feel like it's less effort at the same time. Why am I telling you this? Well, belief matters, and it's very possible that you've experienced the placebo effect with regard to supplements in the past. Whether or not something's scientifically backed, research shows that if your friend recommends it and shows you or tells you about the results that they've achieved with some supplement, you are much more likely to experience change yourself. But it's likely not because the pill is magical. It's more than likely because your psychology, your belief in the effectiveness of this product, is actually what's driving the physiological change. The reason I'm telling you this is because I'm going to present scientific evidence and research with regard to the supplements that we discuss here. And I might even call BS on a supplement that you've used in the past and actually really appreciate. I want you to note that from a scientific perspective, we still don't understand the mechanism or the magnitude of how deeply our beliefs can affect us physiologically. And if you're a firm believer that adding something specific to your coffee has made a world of difference in your mental clarity all day long, it bolsters your energy continually while you've lost 15 pounds at the same time, then I'm not going to argue with you. If it's working for you, don't stop unless it's just stupid and unhealthy, in which case, shoot me an email. We'll get on the phone and we'll talk about how to stop together. I'm talking to you, black market pre-workout users. That's note 1 of 5. Placebo is a real thing, and it definitely affects you when you use your supplements. Which brings us to my number 2 note about supplements, and that is about the research. In this series, as often as possible, I will be referencing research about the supplements that I'm talking about. There are literally millions of supplements out in the world, and whether or not I would recommend something for you that's healthy, non-detrimental, and overall positive for you and your goals has a lot to do with whether or not I've read any research on the subject. You need to understand that just like all the supplements in the world, not all research is created equal either. I use a resource called examine.com, that's EXAMINE.com, that helps me sift through some of the quality of the research that's out there. They're a donation-based organization, and they're not trying to sell anybody supplements. That generally compiles and databases new research about supplements out on the market, and it makes it easier for the average person to understand the quality and effect size of the research. It's really helpful for typing in very specific supplements like magnesium biglycinate or creatine monohydrate, and the awesome team at Examine has compiled the effects and put them in a chart with an accompanying article about relevant information regarding the supplement. I'm telling you about this because while I plan to cover some of the supplements that I generally recommend to my clients, as well as some of the specialty reasons I might recommend certain things, I might not get to your question fast enough here, and so you can do some research on the research yourself. Another note about research is that not all papers are created equal. There's a difference between something like an observational study and a double-blind placebo study. I'll walk you through that real quick so that you understand why you might read some conflicting information, especially in journalistic articles, when they're covering, quote, new studies. About 8 years ago, there was an article that I read that said, new study shows multivitamin doesn't really make a difference. And the article went on to talk about this very, very large-scale study in which people who took multivitamins didn't show more longevity or a reduced risk of things like cardiovascular disease or cancer. What the article didn't talk about was the fact that this research paper was an observational study. Observational studies are really just surveys. They say to a group of people, do you take a multivitamin? Yes or no. Now tell us a little bit about your medical history. They don't say, do you take gummy bear multivitamins from Target? Or do you take a good pharmaceutical grade Thorne Research multivitamin every single morning and every single night? Okay, now tell us about your medical history. Do you see the problem there? Observational studies are a great first step in the direction of researching effects, but they're not what we call a controlled trial. The goal of scientific research is to be able to say that there's a cause and effect relationship between two things. If I take a pharmaceutical grade, third-party tested multivitamin every single day for the next 8 weeks, will that affect me differently than somebody who takes a sugar pill that they believe is a multivitamin every day for the next 8 weeks? And if so, what are those effects? Do you see the difference? What I just described is what we would call a double-blind placebo trial, and that's what we consider the gold standard of research when it comes to supplements. I don't often cover observational studies in my discussion with clients about research because, frankly, they're unreliable. They're the first step in the direction of studying an effect, but from a practical and clinical perspective, it doesn't actually teach us anything about what you should be taking or what you shouldn't be taking in order to achieve better results for yourself. I know it all sounds really complicated, but again, if you have questions about different supplements for yourself, obviously you can ask me those questions in the Defining Dad Bod Inner Circle. But if you want to do your own research, Examine.com does a great job at parsing out the studies that are just observational versus the findings from double-blind placebo studies, and I would 100% recommend that you start your research there. Don't just Google, should I take a fish oil, or what fish oil should I take? Instead, go to Examine.com and type in fish oil in the search bar, and then read their article about the actual studied effects of fish oil and what you should look for in a good fish oil supplement. But all this talk about research has brought me to point number 3 out of 5 that I want you to consider with regard to our conversation on supplements, and that is, you are an experiment where n equals 1. In the scientific literature, when you do a study on 100 people, that's what we call your n. That's your sample size. That's the number of people who have participated in this research study. The larger the sample size, the more likely that you can say that there's a cause and effect relationship between the effect you found in your sample population and the general population. Imagine that I find that drinking a cup of coffee makes me very sleepy, and so I try to say, coffee just makes me sleepy. I can't imagine anybody else drinking it. It must make everybody else sleepy. Well, that's a sample size of 1. Sleepiness directly after coffee consumption is significantly lower for the average population than for my n equals 1 study. And so scientifically we can say, on average, if you drink coffee, you will feel less sleepy. But there are some caveats to that. The same could be said about research that I present to you about supplements. For instance, in a study with 86 participants who consumed ginger every single day, men found an average of 17% increase in their free testosterone. Now you might go consume ginger and see a 30% increase in your testosterone. Or maybe you consume ginger and it doesn't do you any good at all. Was that research study full of malarkey? No. Remember, you are an experiment in which n equals 1. No matter what I have to say about supplements, and no matter what's in the research, the best experiment we know of is yourself. And in a way, I recommend that you treat yourself like an experiment anytime you add a new supplement to your world. And the way you do that is to turn yourself into your own scientist as well. Identify the reason that you would like to add this supplement, and identify at least 3 specific effects that you expect to occur because of this supplement. Then take it and test whether or not those occurrences happen. For instance, let's say you'd like to try a pre-workout supplement. After some research, you find that caffeine plus creatine is the most important aspect of any ergogenic aid, or that is, performance improvements in workouts. So you decide to find a relatively clean supplement that has caffeine and creatine, and you want to test its effects. I guess you could just take the supplement, walk into your workout and say, "Man, that was a great workout. This supplement really works." But what evidence do you really have outside of how good you feel while taking the supplement? Instead, I suggest that we take your body fat percentage, for instance, a 3-rep max bench attempt, and maybe a 40-yard sprint trial in order to have a baseline understanding of whether or not the supplement is actually improving your performance, your musculature, or your overall rate of perceived exertion. And then, after 6 weeks of using this faithfully, we retest. Did our bench go up? Do we sprint a little faster? Do we gain some muscle and lose some fat? Then fantastic. This supplement regimen is working out for you, and you should continue it. Because while the research is there to show that caffeine and creatine are both very powerful ergogenic aids, and when used intelligently, have little to no poor side effects in relationship to their usage, it doesn't matter what the research says if it's not meeting your goals. And I'm telling you this because I've worked with a lot of people for whom if you've opened up their pantries, they've got stacks and stacks of unused supplements that at one point in time they took because it felt good to take them. But the measurable success of this actual supplement was never something that was tracked, and that has led to them thinking that they've tried everything and nothing works for them. In this series, I plan to take the time to tell you, with regard to individual supplements or supplemental recommendations, what measurable outcomes you should be tracking in order to see whether or not something's working well for you. While presenting the research is important, especially with regard to mitigating poor effects, like accidentally taking too much magnesium and having diarrhea as a result, or taking too much fiber and having the opposite effect. It's important that we run the experiment as an n equals 1. Ultimately, your goals are what matter most, and we're going to treat you that way. The fourth of 5 things that I want to cover with regard to supplements is the difference between nutrients and plant polyphenols. This is a technical issue, but I want to make sure that we clear it up here so that when I talk about things later in the future, you're not confused. A nutrient is something that we consume that we have found our body requires to perform certain functions. We've talked about protein, fat, and carbohydrates in Season 2 of Defining Dad Bod, and those are macronutrients. But there's also a class called micronutrients, which are things like phosphorus, zinc, vitamin A, vitamin B6, and the list goes on. And these are the fundamental constituent components of certain reactions in the body, building blocks for tissues and enzymes, and maybe even messengers for specific signals in the body. Nutrients are very different from what we call plant polyphenols. Polyphenols, in contrast, are larger compounds that are found in biological organisms that have a measurable, studyable effect on the body. But unlike nutrients, the jury's still out on many of the mechanisms for plant polyphenols. In my eyes, the short of it is this. Our body uses nutrients to build tissues and fuel reactions, but plant polyphenols can actually have an effect on our body's tissues, either directly or indirectly by, quote, talking to our DNA. Let's use an example to bring this home. Vitamin C is a nutrient, and as a very powerful antioxidant, it can be used to repair oxidative damage, and your skin is an organ that's a very good example of. Many skincare products have vitamin C in them in order to help the restorative process of repairing oxidative damage. Fantastic. But many skincare products also have aloe vera in them. Why is that? Does aloe vera have a lot of vitamin C in it? It has a bit, but it also has some other compounds called plant polyphenols, and many of them are unique to aloe vera. What's interesting is studies suggest that aloe vera polyphenols can actually cause skin to increase its rate of proliferation, that is, create new skin cells, and it can improve the amount of collagen that is produced in the epidermis and dermis. And so several studies have shown that rubbing aloe vera gel on skin can improve skin elasticity and improve the rate of repair from things like cuts and scrapes or burns, which is why if you got sunburn as a kid, your mom rubbed aloe vera on it. Or at least my mom did. Thanks, Mom. I'm telling you this because when we talk about supplements, studies on nutrients are relatively easy to find, mostly because nutrients are really easy to identify. But plant polyphenols, on the other hand, are much, much harder to identify, and therefore, when it comes to herbal adaptogens, you can find effects of herbs studied in the body, but we're not often sure why those herbs have a positive effect on the body. So during the course of this series, I will often reference nutrients and polyphenols, and I want you to know why I'm referencing those and what the difference actually is. If there is a such thing as a magic bullet in the world of supplements, then it likely exists as a polyphenol. Hashtag aloe vera really is awesome. And that brings me to my last of 5 things that I want you to know about supplements as we kick off this series, and that is a note on quality. Now, I have an entire episode called What You Need to Know About Supplements that were recorded way back in the beginning of Defining Dad Bod. It's episode 8. Please don't make fun of my podcasting skills. I was new to this whole thing. But the information therein is still extremely valuable. In that episode, I concentrate very specifically on the quality of supplements that you're taking. How do you know if a supplement is garbage versus whether or not it's actually helpful? After all, if the research says that creatine monohydrate is really beneficial for depression in females, then how do you know if the creatine monohydrate you're taking is even remotely related to the creatine monohydrate that was studied? That's a very good question, and of specific importance to those who are in the US, where the supplement industry is largely unregulated. You could go in your backyard right now with clear supplement capsules, and you could package dirt from your backyard into those supplement capsules and feed them to your mother-in-law, telling her that these are the next best fat-burning supplement on the market. If the placebo effect, and maybe a little extra exercise, finds her losing 2 to 3 pounds and she recommends them to her friend, then bam, you have a supplement company. It's going to take the FDA quite a while to come crack down on your business that's selling capsule dirt to anybody who will buy it. Okay, maybe it's a little more regulated than that, but that's a good depiction of the obstacles that you face when it comes to choosing a decent supplement. I have several recommendations in that episode, and I'm going to recap them in short here. Go listen to episode 8, the link's in the show notes below, if you want to dive a little more deeply into how to understand the quality of your supplements when you're choosing the right brand. In short, you're looking for a GMP stamped supplement, which is good manufacturing process. It's also important that it's third-party tested, and it helps if the company's been around for 20 or more years. Last but not least, understanding the individual ingredients that are on your label, as well as whether or not there are any, quote, proprietary blends that might be covering up quality issues, is a very important part of choosing the right supplement as well. For my clients, I often recommend very specific brands, mostly because as a trainer of 14 years, I've been using these brands for a long time, and I've seen them work very well for my clients, with no negative repercussions. And if you have questions about specific brands, you're welcome to ask those questions in our online community on Facebook. If you're not a part of that already, go to definingdadbod.com/innercircle. If you ask your questions there, I'm very happy to share my professional opinion with you, and you'll likely receive some of the collective wisdom of the group who also have experience with particular supplements and particular companies. So there you have it, the 5 things I want you to know about supplements before we dive into this series. Placebo's real. Research is important. You're a study of 1. There's a difference between nutrients and plant polyphenols, and quality matters. Now, as we dive into this series, it's very important to me that you get your questions answered. If you have a supplement or an acute problem you'd like us to cover on the show, go to definingdadbod.com/supps. That's SUPPS, and fill out the form at the top of the page. If you want to know more about something as small as what kind of performance benefits should you expect from caffeine as a supplement before your workouts, or something as complicated as what supplements have been researched to have a positive benefit on inflammatory bowel diseases, we'd love to cover those questions for you. But we won't know about them if you don't go to definingdadbod.com/supps and fill out the form at the top of the page. There, you'll also find many of my general recommendations that I give to my clients on their own health and fitness journeys, and you're welcome to peruse those as well. That's definingdadbod.com/supps. SUPPS. In the meantime, I'm really looking forward to this series with you. I hope you find it valuable and meaningful, and that you share it with your friends and family if I've said something today that you know they need to hear. This has been Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. Until next time, guys, kick butt, take names.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The free, practical advice and conversations here remain unbought and unbiased, thanks to the support of listeners just like you. If this episode's been helpful to you, please share it with somebody in your life who you know it will benefit. Then, subscribe to the podcast and leave us a raving review to tell others what value Defining Dad Bod has brought to your health and fitness journey. And finally, if you want more Defining Dad Bod, consider joining our online community. We send a lot of free perks and resources your way, and I, Coach Alex, go live every month to talk through our listeners' health and fitness questions to make the practical science of this show applicable to everyday life. Everyone's welcome, and we'd love to have you. For more information about joining the Inner Circle or becoming a supporter of the Defining Dad Bod podcast, go to definingdadbod.com/inner circle. That's definingdadbod.com/inner circle.